Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going to cut through the noise on some complex systems.
Yeah, everything from aviation safety right down to, well, how our own brains work when tired.
Exactly. And global AI, digital privacy. It's all about navigating this, interconnected world. So let's start with this critical event. The preliminary report on that Air India Boeing 787 crash in Ahmedabad. It just came out.
Right. June 12th,
Mm-hmm.
and it's inconclusive.
Inconclusive. And that, according to Yashwant Shenoy, who's been an advocate for aviation safety for, over a decade now, he says this immediately raises huge questions about trust in India's aviation system.
Yeah, he argues that this lack of faith, whether it's, justified or not, it stems from this deeper issue.
What's that?
Well, personnel getting penalized excessively, while the airlines, the regulators, they don't seem to face the same level of scrutiny. He's basically calling for a complete overhaul.
A total rethink.
Pretty much. And it's striking just how multi-layered aviation safety really is, isn't it?
It's not just the plane.
No, not at all. It's the aircraft itself. Sure, design, maintenance, but also the people. You've got maintenance engineers, pilots, cabin crew.
In the ground support?
And the infrastructure, like air traffic control.
Yeah.
The airports themselves, all broadly overseen by the DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation.
With the ministry, MOCA, having supervisory control.
Exactly. And Shenoy brings up that Swiss keys model. You familiar with that?
Where accidents aren't usually one single thing.
Precisely. It's more like multiple smaller flaws, like the holes and slices of Swiss cheese, all lining up perfectly to allow, well, a disaster.
Which makes you wonder.
Yeah, it raises that critical question. When you have so many layers involved, where does the accountability actually lie?
And you can really sense Shenoy's frustration. He's filed, over 15 public interest litigations, PILs?
Over 15, yeah.
Because he feels the aviation authorities themselves, they become the violators. He even points to times court interventions literally saved lives.
Like the Gakapar crash.
Exactly. The 2018 Mumbai crash. A small plane fell into a building site. But here's the kicker. A Bombay High Court stay order back in 2016 had actually stopped construction on that site.
No way!
Yeah. If that stay hadn't been issued, there would have been a 13-story building right there. Imagine how much worse that could have been.
Wow. That really highlights the risks.
It really does. Especially in Mumbai's airspace, which he says has over 5,000 vertical obstructions within just a 4-kilometer radius.
5,000? That's staggering.
And they violate these inner horizontal surface criteria, which are basically strict height limits around airports, absolutely crucial for takeoffs and landings.
Critical safety rules.
Right. And despite a PIL about this already pending, these obstacles near the airport apparently jumped from 125 back in 2010 to over 1,000 by 2025.
That kind of increase is, well, it's alarming. And it points straight back to that systemic breakdown you mentioned starting around 2008.
What happened then?
Essentially, a non-statutory committee kind of bypassed the legal safeguards. They approved buildings using this misused international study.
Even though it wasn't meant for that purpose.
Seems like it. And even when an appellate committee later set a maximum height, it somehow still allowed more obstacles. It even got statutory recognition later, despite rules explicitly not allowing height relaxation.
So the bodies meant to judge complaints were actually the ones approving the violations.
That's the crux of it. And the systemic problem, it isn't just about buildings. It seeps into aircraft design, maintenance issues like using less qualified technicians, unaddressed duty time limits for maintenance engineers.
And pilot fatigue. I hear that mentioned a lot.
Huge concern, especially when the DGCA grants exemptions allowing airlines to essentially bend the rules on flight time duty limitations.
And people trying to raise flags.
Whistleblowers often get silenced, which naturally discourages reporting critical safety issues. So Shenoy's bottom line is, these crashes, they're not just random accidents.
He calls them inevitable.
Inevitable result of years of systemic neglect and policy violations. He also brings up the point that human life is arguably undervalued in India. Compensation is often low.
Which makes it easier to ignore costly safety upgrades.
That's the implication. The real cost isn't just financial. It's this deep erosion of public trust where you need courts to step in as a last resort instead of having proactive safety.
That erosion of trust, it's a powerful point. Okay, building on that, let's pivot. Let's move from concrete aviation issues to something more abstract but just as critical. Artificial intelligence.
AI, right? It's everywhere now.
It really is. Just 3 years ago, ChatGPT kind of blasted AI out of the research labs and into, well, everyone's
A
hands.
huge shift.
And now leaders worldwide are feeling the shockwaves. Syed Akbaruddin, India's former UN rep, points this out. It's leading to this flurry of global summit.
Trying to get a handle on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And India is set to host the AI Impact Summit in February 2026. It's seen as this huge opportunity, really, to show that governments, not just big tech companies, can steer AI for the public good.
But the timing is tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
The geopolitical climate is, let's just say, not exactly smooth sailing right now.
No, definitely not.
We saw that clearly at the Paris AI Summit back in February 2025. The goal was unity, right? But it ended with the U.S. and U.K. rejecting the final text. China welcomed it. That really throws the risk of fragmentation in global AI governance into sharp relief.
That's split right down the middle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Akbaruddin stresses that India, being a leader of the global south, has the standing, the credibility perhaps, to bridge these divides, to ensure wider participation, avoid those situations where half the world isn't even in the room.
And India seems to be leaning into that democratic edge. Their Ministry of Electronics and IT, they actually ran a nationwide consultation using the MyGov platform.
Oh, interesting. Getting input from everyone.
Yeah, students, researchers, civil society, gathering ideas from the ground up, and apparently this is shaping the agenda for the summit.
So what are they proposing?
Akbaruddin outlines 5 key suggestions. First, measure what matters. Get delegations to announce clear 12-month goals.
Like what?
Things like cutting data center electricity usage or offering free AI courses for girls in rural areas. Practical stuff. And track it all on a public scoreboard.
Accountability. I like it. What else?
Second, bring the Global South right to the front row. Push for an AI for Billions fund. Launch a multilingual model challenge for, say, 50 underserved languages.
Making it truly global.
Third, create a common safety check. A global AI safety collaborative to share red team scripts, stress tests, that sort of thing.
Standardizing safety, okay.
Fourth, offer a usable middle road on rules. Draft a voluntary but specific code of conduct for frontier AI. Maybe publish external red team results within 90 days.
Finding that balance between regulation and innovation.
And fifth, just actively work to avoid fragmentation. Keep the summit broad, keep it inclusive, focus on the global good.
So stepping back, India isn't trying to, create a global AI police force overnight.
No, seems much more pragmatic.
Yeah, it's more about stitching together what's already happening and really pushing to share AI capacity with the global majority.
Building on their own digital successes.
Exactly. Things like Aadhaar, their digital identity system, and UPI, the payment interface, they want to turn participation into tangible progress. Which leads to a question for you, the listener. How do you see a nation balancing its own tech race with shaping global norms for something as powerful as AI, especially with all these geopolitical tensions?
It's a huge balancing act. Okay, let's shift again from these massive global systems down to something really personal. Our own brains, specifically how they make decisions when we're tired.
Cognitive fatigue? We've all been there.
Absolutely. End of a long, mentally draining day. You've got a choice. Read that book you should read, or just scroll endlessly on social media.
The easy option calls?
Always, even when you know the book is probably better for you. Well, a new study in the Journal of Neuroscience shows that cognitive fatigue can actually trick your brain into taking that path of least resistance, even if it means fewer rewards.
And what's really fascinating is how they quantified this. Dr. Vikram Chib and his team at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine.
What did they do?
They had volunteers do working memory tasks. Some easy, some harder ones designed to make them feel fatigued. Then, these tired participants got a choice. An easy version of the task for less money or a difficult version for more money.
And when they were tired?
They consistently picked the easy option, even though it meant less cash. When they were rested, though, they went for the harder, more rewarding task.
Wow.
Dr. Chib said it was really cool to see something so many of us feel instinctively actually measured like that in the lab.
I can definitely relate. And the brain scans, the fMRI scans, they showed something specific, didn't they?
They did. So as people got tired doing the memory tasks, a part of the brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC, got active. That's involved in working memory.
Okay.
But then when they made the choice easy or hard task, another area lit up. The right anterior insula.
The insula, what does it do?
Think of it like the brain's internal accountant. It weighs the effort needed for a task against the potential reward. Is it worth it?
Oh, okay.
So it looks like signals from that fatigue zone, the DLPFC, actually influence the INSLA's calculation. They directly change the perceived value of effort, making tasks seem more demanding than they would if you were rested.
So fatigue literally makes effort feel more costly.
That seems to be the mechanism. And what's also peculiar, the study noted that even when people reported feeling tired, their actual performance on the tasks didn't really drop.
So they could still do the hard task?
Apparently, yes. It suggests fatigue doesn't necessarily make us worse at things, but it strongly pushes us to choose easier things, maybe to avoid compromising quality.
That makes sense. Protect the output.
Right. A researcher not involved in the study, Antonius Fieler, kind of echoed this. When the stakes are high, people push through. But if the benefits are iffy, the increased cost of fatigue changes our behavior.
So a question for you listening. How often do you find yourself making that easy choice? Maybe not because you can't do the harder thing, but just because your brain has flagged the effort as too expensive right then.
And Dr. Chibb hints there's more research coming, showing this fatigue-driven preference for less effort might even spill over into physical tasks.
Like skipping the gym after a tough mental day at work.
Exactly that kind of thing, which really underscores, as Dr. Chibb advises, the importance of being mindful about taking breaks or maybe reframing tasks to stop fatigue from constantly skewing our daily choices, especially since cognitive fatigue is a symptom in so many neurological and psychiatric conditions.
So, okay, shifting gears dramatically now from the individual brain to a deeply complex and very serious global issue, the allegations of genocide in Gaza.
A very heavy topic.
In January 2024, South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. They argued that Israel's military campaign in Gaza amounts to genocide.
A profound claim.
And the ICJ subsequently issued directives for unimpeded humanitarian aid based on their preliminary assessment that there's a plausible risk of genocide occurring.
To really understand this, we need to be clear on the legal definition of genocide. It was coined by Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jewish jurist, back in 1944.
And it's codified in the 1948 Genocide Convention.
Right. It's defined as specific acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in substantial part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group.
So it's not just about mass killing.
No, it requires two key things. First, the actus reunus, the actual physical acts, things like killing members of the group or deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction.
The actions.
And second, the mens rea, the mental element. But it's a very specific intent called dolus specialis. It's the deliberate, unique intention to destroy the group itself, as a group.
That specific intent is the key differentiator.
Absolutely. That's what sets genocide apart from other mass atrocities. It makes it the gravest of international crimes.
Yeah.
And it's considered an oga obligation. Meaning it's an obligation owed to the entire international community, to humanity as a whole. Which is why South Africa, even though not directly involved in the conflict, has the standing to bring this case to the ICJ.
But proving that specific intent, that's the huge challenge, right? States rarely come out and say, our intention is genocide.
Extremely difficult. So
Yeah.
here's where it gets incredibly troubling for the international community. You have the UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, and organizations like Human Rights Watch.
What are they pointing to? They're highlighting the systematic destruction in Gaza residential areas, hospitals, universities, cultural sites. They argue it looks like a policy aimed at making Palestinian life itself unsustainable.
The scale of destruction is immense.
Reports indicate over 90% of schools and universities destroyed. Local health authorities report, over 58,000 people killed, including more than 17,000 children.
Horrific numbers.
Israel maintains its actions target Hamas, not civilians, but Albanese calls this humanitarian camouflage, arguing it systematically distorts humanitarian law principles.
And the ICJ's standard for inferring that specific intent is notoriously high.
How high?
Intent can only be inferred if it's the only inference that could be reasonably drawn from the pattern of actions, a very stringent test. Yeah, that high bar has actually been criticized by several states. They argue it makes proving genocide near impossible, even though international criminal tribunals have recognized that genocidal intent can exist alongside other motives, like military objectives.
But even with that high standard,
Some experts, including Israeli genocide scholars like Shmuel Lederman and Professor Omer Bartov, they argue that Israel's conduct, the operational patterns, the dehumanizing rhetoric from some senior officials, they believe it does meet the criteria, even the strict ones.
the ICJ's final ruling will take years, though.
Years, absolutely. But the ongoing devastation and reports of non-compliance with the ICJ's provisional measures demanding aid access, it raises serious questions about the credibility of the whole rules-based international order.
We've seen calls for UN sanctions, arms embargoes.
Yes, but they've largely been blocked. Major Western powers, especially the U.S., have repeatedly used their veto power in the UN Security Council to block resolutions calling for ceasefires or condemning actions.
Which brings us back to that balancing act.
Indeed. It poses a really tough question for you, the listener. How do you see the world's most powerful nations balancing their own geopolitical interests against their moral and legal obligations when it comes to preventing potential atrocities?
A question with no easy answers. Okay, let's shift focus one last time to Europe. The European Commission is wrestling with another complex balancing act, protecting children online versus preserving adult privacy.
The age verification debate.
Exactly. They're developing an age verification app under the Digital Services Act. The goal is to stop minors accessing harmful content, like pornography. But, predictably, it's stirring up a big debate about privacy.
Well, the EU's ambition here is pretty significant. They've passed several laws trying to regulate online platforms, specifically calling out risks for kids like addiction, cyberbullying, exposure to harmful stuff.
So the app is their solution.
It's a prototype, launched mid-July. It's built on the same tech specs as their upcoming European digital identity wallets, the EID system, which should roll out by late 2026.
So what countries are working on this now?
Yeah, places like Denmark, Greece, Spain, France, Italy. They're among the first working with the Commission to get national versions going, and the Commission claims it protects privacy using something called zero-knowledge proof technology.
Zero-knowledge proof sounds technical.
Think of it like this. You can prove you have a key without showing the key, or prove you're over 18 without revealing your actual birth date or identity. The claim is no one would be able to track, see, or reconstruct what content individual users are consulting.
Okay, that sounds clever.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets tricky. Everyone agrees kids should be protected, right?
Of course.
But critics worry that forcing mandatory age verification, even with this tech, could still compromise privacy and security, could make browsing easier to track somehow. You even have French President Macron wanting to ban social media entirely for under 15s.
It's a pretty drastic step.
And then you've got industry pushback. ILO, the company that owns Pornhub, for instance.
What's their take?
They agree kids need protection, but they argue verification should happen at the device level, handled by Apple, Google, Microsoft, before a kid can even get to an adult site.
Put the onus on the operating system or hardware makers.
Right. ILO even blacked out their sites in France for 2 weeks in June as a protest. They warn that making users constantly enter sensitive info creates an unacceptable security risk. And it could just push users to smaller, sketchier sites with illegal content.
They only unblocked after a court ruling, though the top court did affirm age verification is necessary.
Yeah, the legal battle continues.
It really throws this fundamental tension into sharp relief, doesn't it? How do we use technology to protect vulnerable groups, like children online, without accidentally undermining the privacy and security of adults?
Even with fancy tech like zero-knowledge proofs.
Exactly. It shows that public trust and getting industry on board are absolutely crucial. ILO's position saying every device should start kid-safe and only verified adults can unlock adult content clearly shows the industry pushing for a very different approach.
So a final question for you listening. As digital identities get woven more and more into our lives, how do you see this balance shifting between regulating for safety on one hand and the right to individual privacy and online freedom on the other? Across all these deep dives today, aviation safety, AI governance, brain fatigue, digital privacy, there's this recurring theme, isn't there?
This constant negotiation.
Yeah, between these incredibly complex systems and us as individuals, our agency within them. How much responsibility falls on the rules, the institutions, and how much is on us to make informed choices or to demand better protection?
It's a constant push and pull.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you. In this world that's getting more connected, more information dense by the day, what's your role? Your role in ensuring safety, in driving progress, and in protecting privacy. Thank you for listening. If today's episode gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given in the episode description. We are always eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.